Hello there and welcome back to another review. Today we're going to be having a look at Drive, starring Mark Dacascos, Kadeem, Hardison, Brittany Murphy, and directed by Steve Wang, released here by 88 Films. Made in 1997, and this is a film I've very fond memories of. I absolutely love Drive. I don't know if any of you out there have seen Drive or maybe never heard of it, but if you have, or if it's a film you're curious about watching, I'd love to hear from you, because it's a very underrated movie. It's a very sort of almost forgotten about film sometimes, but you can't underestimate sort of how important Drive is. I say it's often overlooked, it's often forgotten about, but it's a great action kung fu comedy, even sort of gunplay-esque type film that you really should watch, and I'll be getting into that today and why it is so cool and what makes it a great movie. This was a film I saw on the Sci-Fi Channel when it was broadcast in a much shorter version, and that shorter version is included on this Blu-ray disc. And there's the original sort of director's cut of the film, which is much longer with a more serious sort of cinematic soundtrack, and the shorter version, which has a sort of a more techno upbeat soundtrack. I know Steve Wayne, the director, prefers the much longer version, obviously, because that was sort of, closer to his original vision of what he was trying to do. But the shorter version does work. It does. Both versions, I think, are entertaining. I don't think, either one of them is sort of. I don't think the shorter version ruins the film in a sense. It just basically skips out some of the emotional side of things, sort of the more dramatic side of the film scenes that you see. But both versions are still entertaining, but I'm going to be reviewing and talking about the original director's cut here today, the longer version. So, Mark Dacascos, many of you will know from films such as Crime-Free Man, Double Dragon he was in, the movie adaptation of that. He was also most notably in John Wick Chapter 3. What makes Drive so important is this was Rush Hour before Rush Hour. This was Matrix, this was before Matrix, this was before Crouching Tiger, this was 1997, so before Matrix and sort of changed the game with sort of how Hollywood does action in sense with that Hong Kong action style. I mean, Drive was pretty much the precursor to that, and like I say, it's largely forgotten about. Not a lot of people know about this movie. It's to say, it was once Matrix comes out, everybody's aware of that Hong Kong action, but I say Drive cannot be underestimated just for how important it is, and like I say, it really should be a lot more popular than how it's sort of become. The reason why I say Rush Hour is because there is that same dynamic here, like you would get between Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan. Kadeem, Hardison and Mark Dacascos have that same sort of rapport where one of them sort of like the comedy, the other one's sort of there for the fight scenes, and they really do play off well against each other in this movie. You've also got Brittany Murphy, as I say, who just absolutely steals every scene in this film. She really is such fun to watch. She has a great just role in this movie, and the great comedy between her and Kadeem Hardison. The action is done by Koichi Sakamoto and his team, and they're most famous for doing sort of the work on the Power Rangers TV show. Their stunt group was obviously big influence by sort of the Jet Li style, the Jackie Chan style. Really great choreography here in this film. I remember having this on DVD back in the early 2000s. I did tape it when I watched it ages ago on the Sci-Fi Channel on VHS way back when. But I remember I used to read a magazine called Impact, Action Movie Magazine. I'm not sure if any of you in the UK remember that magazine. I don't know if it's still going or if it's been cancelled. I don't know. But I always remember they'd done a review of it, and they called it the greatest action film that Hong Kong didn't make. So instantly reading that, I was sort of, I've got to check this film out. I've got to see what this film, I've got to see what all the fuss is about. So the film opens up on this frigate. We meet Toby Wong, played by Mark Dacascos, sneaking around the containers. He got on board sort of as a stowaway. Lots of bad dudes here walking around in their black suits, smoking cigarettes, the usual villain goons. That's how they always look, isn't it? They always have to look shifty, in black, and that kind of vibe. And we meet this sort of redneck assassin called Madison, who is tasked with hunting down and capturing Toby. As we all know, we learn at some point that Toby is considered the merchandise. We're not sure what that means at this point, but that's what he views, when he's talking, that's what he calls Mark Dacascos' character. So Toby escapes after a fight scene on the boat and walks into this bar, and when he walks into this bar, I mean, the whole film, he's got this boiler suit on. He's got this sort of black boiler suit on. And he goes into this bar and suddenly he's got a trench coat on. I'm not sure where he gets the trench coat from, or he might have stolen it from one of the guys at the beginning, but he just walks in, he meets Malik, played by Kadeem Hardison, who's sort of this down and out singer-songwriter type of character who's there sort of moping really, sort of his wife's sort of broken up with him, he's lost his house, he's sort of down on his luck. So the bad dudes manage to find him and come in with their suits and shades and of course their machine guns, and it's, as I say, you're not quite sure how the bad dudes keep finding Mark at this point. You're not sure how they keep managing to track him down. And it's the kind of film, don't worry about the plot. Don't worry about if it's all making sense. Just enjoy the ride. Just enjoy how fun it is. And this is something like modern movies, unfortunately, it's almost like a lost cause sometimes lately in like way movies are done, because usually there's an agenda being pushed or a social commentary that's being pushed or whatever it may be, or taking itself too seriously. This film from start to finish is very much just enjoy yourself, enjoy the comedy, enjoy the gunfights, enjoy the martial arts, and just have a blast. And that's something unfortunately which is lacking, definitely severely lacking in some movies, well, a lot of movies that are being made today. Not meant to be taken seriously. So after another fight, they escape in Malik's car. These baddies obviously have no one to answer to, just go into any public place, shoot them up, kill the bartender. They don't care. They have no sort of higher authority to answer to. When they're after Toby Wang, they can just basically do whatever they want. So it's a funny scene where Kadeem, when they get into his car and Kadeem is like driving, he goes to light a cigarette and Toby says, "Look, don't do that. I'm not going to let you do that." And bearing in mind, like he's taking him hostage, he's taken his car, now he's telling him in his own car that he can't even light a cigarette. And Kadeem Hardison's face here is absolutely priceless. He's like, well, I can't even smoke either. Like, you ruined my day. I've got shot at and now I can't even have a cigarette. We learn that Toby wants to go to LA. Malik says, I'm not going. Toby tells him he has no choice. Now, I'm not sure why he has to take Malik. Like, why couldn't he just take Malik's car keys and just drive himself, or just grab somebody else to take him there, or just take public transport, which he actually does at some point in the movie, goes to get on a bus. So I'm not sure when Mark says you have no choice. I'm not quite sure what he means by that at all. He just says you have no choice. You've got to take me to LA. Yeah, so Madison is working for Mr. Lau in Hong Kong, and I love it when there's this great scene where they go through the cops. These cops are sort of doing these spot checks. They're stopping the car, and again, unless you know who this is, unless you were sort of into your kung fu movies and your Hong Kong action type of films, you would have no idea. You wouldn't get the joke. You would not get the in-joke. So the cops sort of ask for their names and their details. And Mark Dacascos calls himself Sammo Hung. Now, I was like, oh my God, they've just said Sammo, and they know. So if these guys, the film like director Steve Wang, if these using Sammo, if these people know who Sammo is, then I'm in good hands here. I'm thinking, right, they know Sammo that's good. That is a good sign. That's hopefully, just that means we're in for a good ride here. Referencing Sammo, so I was really into the movie at this point. So the cops are crooked and they take them to Madison at this sort of gravel pit site where Malik refers to Toby as sort of the 5 fingers of death. Again, another point where I was like, right, I get it. They understand in their kung fu, their early Shaw Brothers movies, they've referenced that as well. We're in good hands. They've got, if that's the kind of things they're looking at as their influences like Shaw Brothers and Sammo Hung, yeah, bring it on. Good stuff. So, this leads into like a sort of a classic action scene here where the two are sort of handcuffed together. And if you remember sort of the scene which Jackie Chan does really well in Project A Part 2, where the Axe Gang are pursuing him and the officer who he's sort of chained to, it's very much what you get here in the action scene. It's very, very owes a lot to that scene in Project A Part 2, but again, really well done and just almost a sort of, in a way, sort of a homage to that. Great fun stuff, and like I say, that's how it plays. And I love how they keep the gunplay going as well throughout the action scenes. It's not just they have a kung fu fight, or they're shooting guns, they run out of bullets, then they fight. It's very much you get kung fu, then you get guns, then you get some more martial arts, then you get guns. The gunplay is spread across all the martial arts and fight sequences as well. So you get that nice balance, more kung fu than gunplay, but you still get a bit of that John Woo-esque type scenes here in this movie. So even when they sort of slide down, You know, The Wire at one point is very reminiscent of the end of sort of Rush Hour 2, which was done several years later, you know, about 5 years later. So, you know, you definitely get a lot of Rush Hour vibes from this movie. So they escape, and we find out Toby has like a bio-engine in his chest, and the government has sort of put it there, and he wants to get to LA so he can sort of sell the implant, and he promises Malik half the money. So he's just trying to get this thing out of his chest. And it's funny, when they go to Malik's house to try and saw the handcuffs off, they run into his wife, and we learn that he's sort of splitting up with her. He's lost his house, he's losing everything, and she's seeing this other guy who Malik can't stand, and he's like just slagging this guy off, keeps calling him a cheeseburger and just how much of an idiot he is, and he just sounds such a loser and things like this. And it is a funny scene where he says, oh, you know, his name's Steve, and he goes, I hate that Steve guy. And Mark Dacascos' character goes, yeah, he goes, yeah, me too. Like, just from what he's been telling him, Mark hates him as well. It's like he just sounds, you know, a complete jerk. So the Lung Corporation, run by Mr. Lau, have created like an advanced model of what like Toby is. You're not quite sure what these assassins will be. You know they're assassins, but you're not sure what they're going to be used for. I mean, obviously, like I say, taking people out, but you're not sure who these assassins are going to be sold to, who they're going to be given to. I assume it's just for the highest bidder. You know, it's just creating these sort of advanced techno sort of assassins, and they're just going to be sold to whoever's got the most money. He flipped, at one point the advanced model flips a coin through the throat of this other guy, and it comes out on the wall behind him. And the bioengine basically just gives the person who's got it in their chest sort of advanced strength, you know, movement, speed. Just makes them just everything like almost like a superhuman, really. Just everything sort of goes up, you know, speed, fighting skills, everything, you know. So the car breaks down, and they go into this motel where they meet Brittany Murphy, who basically steals the show in every scene she is in. She absolutely is on fire in this film. She's sort of like excitable, she's naive, she's curious, she just really does light up every scene she's in, and she just, like I say, absolutely kills it, absolutely nails it, plays the part absolutely perfectly. I love as well, like, she's criticising Malik's car all the time, like where they pull in and she says, I've never seen anything this bad that still runs, you know, where she says when did Godzilla get hold of your car? Just little lines of dialogue that keeps the comedy pacing happening really well. And she's hitting on Malik continuously, and the comic chemistry between the two is just so much fun to watch. Just great stuff. So Madison brings loads of goons to the motel. Again, we're not too sure why or how he keeps finding them, how he keeps finding the pair of them, but they keep tracking them down. They go to sort of ambush them at the motel. I will say this film is the perfect showcase for just how talented Mark Dacascos is. Really, really just amazing guy, you know, really amazing performer. I mean, look no further, at one point Mark Dacascos does, he's like on this sort of mini scaffolding, but he does like the perfect sort of aerial bat flip off of it all in one take. Just absolutely amazing performer, amazing like martial artist. It's a shame he never become like the full-blown A-list action star he could have so easily become. That isn't to say he done all bad films. I just always felt Mark never really got that huge, massive break that he deserved. I think he was very much sort of overlooked by Hollywood in many ways, which in some people's eyes can be seen as a good thing, because sometimes when Hollywood gets hold of some of these action stars and these really, really talented people, they don't really always know what to do with them. You know, if you look, for example, like Jackie Chan in The Tuxedo or Jackie Chan in Spy Next Door, it's like, what are you doing? You know, that's not... You can't really knock Jackie Chan for that, but it's like sometimes you know, the performers, you think if that's the best sort of vehicle you can think to offer them, and sometimes, like I say, it's not an obvious, but sometimes it's a blessing that Hollywood doesn't sort of pick them up, because you never know what kind of if the movies are just going to be really, really bad. But no, Mark unfortunately just never got that, what I would say, that big break. I don't think he did anyway. As I said, it's not to take anything away from Mark's back catalogue, but I just never felt he hit that big moment, that peak moment that he really should have done. But obviously John Wick 3, that probably brings him a lot more fans and notoriety. So we get a great action scene here. Lots of Jackie Chan type stuff in the motel involving props like chairs, cars, but again, like I said earlier, at the same time keeping all that gunplay going, you know, keeping the gunplay like along with the kung fu. And I love how Malik, who at this point has been sort of grounded and terrified, and why am I involved in this, what's going on? At one point he takes a chainsaw and he cuts this guy's arm off while he's shooting a gun, and you see the arm sort of fly around in circles while the gun's still firing. So it's a bit out of character at that point, but again, when a film is this entertaining, you're not meant to take it seriously. It's just good fun. As I say, lots of action here, and really close quarters as well, like in really tiny motel room. Makes a change from, say, like a huge big set. It's amazing stuff, really tight spacing, really tight, close together, really well shot, really well put together. Watch out for Mark doing like a backward roll and then a backflip off a car. Just does it absolutely flawlessly, just absolutely nails it. Just beautiful bit of just the way he flips off the car. So at the end of this, Madison uses like a bazooka on the hotel, and even though I thought he was just meant to capture Toby and not kill him, but he just brings out this great big like bazooka, even though he's stressed that he's like earlier in the film they say shoot him in the legs because they don't want to injure him, so he just pulls out this great big bazooka. So they manage to escape, and they ditch Brittany Murphy's character. Unfortunately, she just sort of disappears. They say, you're not coming with us. And you even actually side with Madison and sort of Hedgehog, his sort of second in command at one point, like his sort of assistant, because they are just doing their job and they keep getting beaten up and failing. Steve Wang does take time to sort of focus on these two. It's like, look, we're finding this hard. Like, we can't bring this guy down. He didn't need to do that, but he sort of puts one point after the motel scene. He does sort of shift the focus to Madison. He phones Mr. Lau, sends in the advanced model and tells him there's no need for Toby anymore. Like, you can do what you want with him because we've got the advanced model. And turns out it's Toby's girlfriend who sort of opened his eyes to how corrupt the government was and the people he was working for, and they ended up killing her. So there is a backstory which is fleshed out a lot more in the longer version that I'm reviewing here. So they go to like a karaoke bar called Apollo 14, where he's approached by these guys who are from LA and they are there to help, and they buy the chip, and he explains he has like a tracking beacon inside him, explaining they do clarify how Madison is able to find them all the time, like how he's able to track them down, because at this point you had no idea how they for some reason just keep on knowing exactly where Toby is. So all is fine. So rather than keep their heads down, Toby decides to go on the mic and starts doing some karaoke, which, again, like I say, keeps it light-hearted, just keeps the fun going, with the film. Then the advanced model shows up, and then the editing in this film is pretty damn slick. And of course, we have to have motorcycles crash the party too, just for good measure. At the end, they come crashing in. You've got to have some motorbikes. Very brutal as well, and I mean, not as much as say like John Wick nowadays, but Toby here is showing these guys no mercy with some great fight choreography here, using knives and God knows what else, swords. I love the full front kick that he does to the motorbike, which sends the guy absolutely flying forwards. So it sort of ends with like having a one-on-one fight with the advanced model. Nice punches and kicks here, some great choreography. It's worth mentioning the guy who played the advanced model is not a martial artist at all. He was doubled a lot through the fight scene, but you couldn't tell because it's, like I say, it's so well edited and put together, and just great action scene at the end. I mean, there are people dying. I mean, some of the members of the public absolutely get killed in this. So Toby quite easily beats the advanced model. Mr. Lau boosts its power, so the fight has sort of a round two, which of course Toby still wins. So him and Malik joke, and they sort of laugh on the way out. As I mentioned, even though loads of people have been shot, some innocent bystanders have been shot in the karaoke bar, but they're not too worried about that. They're just laughing and joking. As I say, I can't stress enough, do not take this film that seriously. Just have a blast with it. Then they sort of blow up Madison at the end, and the whole building comes down with him having bombs in them. This place was always going to get blown up. You just already knew. And that's sort of the end of the movie. I've sort of rushed through it quite quickly, but it's a very underrated film. It's very much sort of a B-movie-esque type kung fu comedy movie, but it's definitely worth checking out. And if you've never heard of Drive, please go and check it out. As I say, it's a great sort of showcase for Dacascos, and just to say, great comedy from Kadeem Hardison. Great, and it's unfortunate that Steve Wang hasn't sort of directed more features like this, unfortunately, because he's obviously a huge big kung fu fan and martial arts fan, so it would have been great to have seen more from him. But if you've never seen Drive, please go check it out, or if you have seen it, let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you again soon.